Hello. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to add notes from the major and minor pentatonic scale to basic open chords like F, C, G, D, A, D minor, A minor, E minor, and then I'll also include some basic bar chords like B minor, F sharp minor, and C sharp minor. There will be a lesson PDF available for a free download on my website, so you can use that to follow along here. I'll be using note names to describe my ideas and licks that I'll be showing you today. So if you don't know your fretboard really well, it would be helpful to know where those notes are. So I'm just going to go in order of where the notes are on the PDF. So right off the bat, you have the first diagram is an F major or D minor pentatonic scale. So you can use the blank diagrams next to each of the scale diagrams to write out the chords. So you have like an F chord or a D minor chord. Okay, so I'm just going to play through the scale one time. G, F, D, C, A, G, F, D, C, A, G, F, and then up the scale, F, G, A, C, D, F, G, A, C, D, F, G. So what I'll be doing is I'll be showing you some ideas that are very common that guitar players might use, like Jimi Hendrix might use, or rhythm guitar players will use. So the idea here is that you can take your basic rhythm playing and then you can add little licks and fills. So for the F chord, so the first two would be something like this, where you're, say, on your F chord, and then you're going to hold these two notes, the C and F, and then you're going to do a quick hammer on the G note and then on the D note. And then typically the way this is played, you play two notes at the same time. So that's a good one. So if I was playing F chord, or something like hammer on C, D, F. So I combine two ideas. Okay, then for another one would be to hold, say, the F chord in the middle here. And then this is an idea you might hear Jimi Hendrix play, where you take this, so you're hammering G to A in the middle of the chord. And then if you wanted to get fancy, you can add that major 7 there. You might hear that idea. And then if your hand is big enough and your technique is good, you can also add in the bass note with the thumb. And so on. Okay, so the next one, let's go D minor. So same scale, so F major pentatonic, D minor pentatonic are the same scale. So the D minor chord, you can just do a simple hammer on here, F to G. Then you can also form a D minor 7th chord. There's a couple quick ideas. Okay, then if you form the D minor chord with these 4 fingers, 3 fingers, then you have right, that's the sound that you hear like Allman Brothers would use. Or I think there's that Bon Jovi song that does the same thing. And then if you wanted to get maybe kind of bluesy, maybe something like so if you had like a low D tuning, you can maybe use that along with a D minor chord. Okay, that's a couple ideas there from D minor. Let's go on to the next diagram. You have a C chord and an A minor chord, C major, A minor pentatonic. I'll spell out the notes. G, E, D, D, C, A, G, E. E, G, A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G. Okay, so you have a C chord. So you can do something like, you hear this a lot, just adding the G note to like a strum. Or adding the D note. So you might see that called a C add 9, or you might see it called C sus2. I think the add 9 is the technically correct term for that. Okay, and then you have these notes in the middle, D, E, G, A. All right, so you can do that while you're holding the C chord. So you can do like D, E hammer, G, A hammer. Right, very common lick. And then you can also do the idea I was doing on the F chord. You can hit 2 notes together. So that's an idea that a lot of guitar players use. So you hit the 2 inner strings together, and then hammer the E note, 2 strings together. And that's kind of similar to the D minor lick I did. A minor, same scale. Kind of sounds a little bit like what's that? Angie, Rolling Stones. Right, so that was a very good example of guitar players using the notes from Pentatonic to embellish a basic chord. Right, it's from Angie. Okay, so then you have these notes in the middle. G, A hammer, D, E hammer, and then if you want to get fancy, or you can also do something where you kind of play a chord, release the chord, and then kind of play that G. That's kind of a nice sound. I've been doing that in some of my latest videos on my Over the Rainbow arrangement. I use some 4th intervals. And that's kind of a more jazzy sound, adding in the 4 and the flat 7. You just have to be aware, depending on what style of music you're playing, you know, when to add the 7th and when not to add the 7th. There's a nice kind of folky idea where you're just kind of hammering, hitting the 2 inner strings, hammering the E and A in the middle. Adding the D note. Couple ideas. Okay, now onto the G chord. So this next scale diagram, this is back in my private teaching days. This was one of the first scales that I would teach people, because I thought G, a lot of people know G chord. You know, here's a simple G chord. A lot of people know E minor chord. And then before I would teach the 5th position, A minor, I would just teach this as a way of getting people interested and aware of improvising. So G, E, D, B, A, G, E, D, B, A, G, E. Up the scale. E, G, A, B, D, E, G, A, B, D, E, G. So that's a very accessible scale, and people can learn how to play, you know, songs in E minor, songs in G, improvise in G, or songs E blues. Okay, lots of different things you can do with this. So if I just have 2 fingers down for the G chord, I have all these notes in the middle. Right. So depending on how wide your fingerboard is, you might need to lift this G note to get that to come through. A, B hammer, D, E hammer, G, A hammer. And then you can do pull-outs here. A, G. I'm just hitting single notes. Okay, now if you're playing this chord, which is a very common G chord, technically speaking, it's really a G5 because there's no third in that chord. So, you know, adding in the open strings is kind of a nice filler. It's kind of kind of subtle, but you can use that as a way of sort of connecting chords. Let's say you wanted to connect, say, G to a C chord. And you hear that all the time. People do that idea. Okay, I'm going to digress a little bit here. There's a lick that Hendrix uses in the song Remember off of Smash Hits. It's like these two notes, you go up, you slide up 2 frets, and then here you slide up A and D. I'll do that maybe one more time. So that's in Remember, Jimi Hendrix Smash Hits. So you take the D and G. I think he does it all with one pick, and then you take the A and D, slide up 2 frets. All right. Let's do a little bit more with this G chord. Okay, so the other kind of interesting thing that I like to do a lot of times is, rather than playing a full chord, I might just kind of hold the bass note. Okay, so this is technically still a G chord. So notice what I'm doing is I'm kind of, as I'm holding the chord and hitting, I'm striking a couple strings while I'm doing these hammer-on. Or you can also just hold these 2 notes, right? If you think of the song Wish You Were Here, that's kind of what they're doing. So they're basically playing G major, E minor pentatonic. Gilmore's doing that. But then he's just adding the notes. He's just adding the notes from the G major, E minor pentatonic. So whether you play the G chord like that, or whether you add that note right there, at different times in that song, sometimes he's playing this, sometimes he's playing that. So that's a really good usage of a partial G chord or a partial E minor 7th chord, and then adding in notes. Okay, E minor chord, lots of things you can do here. You can use these double notes. Double note here. Yeah, so all kind of double notes. So D, G, E, A, B, E. That's kind of a nice kind of folky kind of sound. A double hammer on B and E. They just come right down the scale. Yeah, lots of different things you can do there. Okay, let's move on to the next diagram, the D chord. So you can do D, or you can do like some kind of B minor chord, either a B minor bar or B minor in the middle. I'll spell out the notes of the scale: F sharp E, D B, and then a doubled B here, B A, F sharp E D, B A, F sharp E. Up the scale: E, F sharp, A B, D E, F sharp, A B, B D. F sharp. Yeah, so a D. So probably one of the most common things that you'll hear is there's so many guitar licks that are based around that. And I'm just going to digress just for 1 minute here. So I haven't been talking about the sus4s. Maybe I can come back to that a little bit later. So sus4 is technically not in the pentatonic scale, but is obviously something that's used quite a lot with guitar players. There's that E note, and then if you do sus, all right, so I'll just digress on that. Okay, so then So in the middle here, A, B, and then E, F sharp. So you have a nice little convenient scale in there. D, E, F sharp, A, B. Slide. So notice what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to end up back at the chord. So these kinds of ideas can really spice up your guitar playing. Like if you're a singer-songwriter, you could have your song, you're doing the G chord. D chord. G chord. Then the other thing that's not in the pentatonic scale but is used a lot by guitar players is adding in the flatted thirds. So if I'm in the key of D, D, E, F sharp, A, B. So anywhere along the line you can put in the F, which is the flatted third. Okay, so you can do that with any of these scales. Okay, so like for example, let's say I'm going here on the D chord, I'm sliding F to F sharp. How about if you want to get tricky, do a little bend there. So then you're kind of blurring the difference between major and minor. And you'll hear that a lot. So once again, it's a stylistic thing. You have to kind of decide when you want to have a more pure sound and then when you want to have a more bluesy sound. I'm going to take a little tangent here on Norwegian Wood. So, alright, so that first little part there features almost all the notes of D major pentatonic plus the four. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. A note. Off into something else, and it goes to C chord. So I would kind of consider that kind of D mixolydian. So in addition to what I'm presenting here, then you have to kind of think, well, what else can you add also? So I don't want to get too far afield here with all the different possibilities, but this just occurred to me here with this Norwegian Wood. Add in that open string also. It's very, very convenient to add that. Okay, let's go to B minor. Okay, now it gets a little trickier technically because you have to be able to hold your bar down. So right now I'm using electric guitar with 9 gauge strings. So my action is pretty low here. For an acoustic guitar player, depending on how strong your fingers are, you just have to either practice a lot or maybe try a lighter gauge of string, like a custom light or something. You might find that easier than to do these kinds of ideas as opposed to using, say, a 12 gauge string. All right, so here I release my chord, E, F sharp, A, B. Alright, so there's a nice convenient scale there. A, B, D, E, F sharp. How about those low notes? E, F sharp, A, B. And then you can also throw in the blues note. Yeah, so that blues note is kind of interesting because when you're playing major, that blues note is the flatted third. When you're playing minor, that flatted third, that's the flatted fifth. So it's you get twice as much use out of the same lick. Now, when I was a very young guitar player, first learning about this stuff, I started learning these pentatonic scales. This one here, this one here. This is the B minor pentatonic. Just learning all the 5 positions, which anybody who's played guitar for a number of years at some point usually learns those, or learns them really well, or whatever. So then I thought to myself, well, what if I took those scales and I took the chords? What could I add to the chord? So then I started thinking, well, if I have a B minor chord, I can add this note here, the A, which is not on the lesson PDF, but I'm just saying that's another, an extension of what I have on the lesson PDF. So A note, I can add the E note, B, I can add that note, and I can also add D, B. So then I started, writing song and realized that I can add all those notes. Once again, stylistically, if you're playing sort of a folky kind of song, you might not want to do this because it tends to sound all of a sudden really jazzy. And there's that kind of convenient little pentatonic scale right there. So B, A, F sharp, E, D, B. Right, so then you have to decide, depending on what your song is or your lick, do you want to release this chord? Or do you want to hold the chord while you're adding your licks? So that's kind of more of a personal preference. Okay, B minor. So let's go on to A now, the next diagram. A major pentatonic, F sharp, E, C sharp, B, B, A, F sharp, E, C sharp, B, A, F sharp, B, E, F sharp, A, B, C sharp, B, F sharp, A, B, B, C sharp, B, F sharp. So you got your A chord. So you have your A open. Right, so that's the same device that we used on the D. Adding the sus2. Right, so this is kind of an interesting voicing here. You can add the sus2 here. I was just watching a Gordon Lightfoot documentary, and if you could read my love. If you could read my love. So that's kind of an interesting sound. Now I'm kind of doing a tricky. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of a tricky thing here. I'm raising my finger to sometimes get that high E to sound that, but you wouldn't need to. Barring my A, and I'm adding that B note. So either there, kind of sounds cool. That's kind of hard to kind of fit all your fingers in. That might be an interesting sound sometime. Okay, so now so what I'm going to switch back to the bar fingering, kind of very typical kind of rock fingering. So don't feel like you have to always get that high E there, because that's very, very difficult to do. To do a hinge bar and get the E. So just make sure that you're getting like the inner 3 strings, so maybe occasionally getting this C sharp. Okay, so then you have this kind of pentatonic in the middle, E, F sharp. Right, and that's the sound that you hear Hendrix plays all the time. Right, so technically that would be an A with a C sharp bass. Then you also hear licks where you kind of do hammer, B, C sharp. so I'm just doing like a fall off there. Okay, we also add in that blues note, so that's the flatted third, the C. Right. And there's countless examples of that. Yeah, like Jimmy Page would do, like maybe a little bend there. Yeah, lots of different things you can do there. Okay, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. So then if you've watched enough of my videos, you know I talk a lot about two-string grouping. So if you look at the bottom two strings, E, F sharp, A, B, C sharp, then that same pattern will repeat. E, F sharp, A, B, C sharp, E, F sharp, A, B, C sharp. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to show you every single possibility here, but maybe I'll just show you just a couple ideas here. So little inside joke there. Okay, so if you're in the middle here, end up on that partial chord there. E, F sharp, A, B, slide up to C sharp, and then you have the E there. So you have a partial E. So I will point out that the lesson PDF that'll be available on my website isn't going to have every single note that I'm using, but it'll have most of them. And I'll point out, like right here, this is not on the PDF. So that C sharp is available here, and it's also available there, and I'm adding the E note up there. All right, so let's go to F sharp minor. Okay, so at this point I'll add in the notes from F sharp minor pentatonic. So you have A, F sharp, E, C sharp, B, A, F sharp, E, C sharp, E, A, F sharp. So many guitar players who've been playing for a number of years will know that. So just like I talked about the B minor, how I tried to figure out all the different notes I could add to that. So then when I started learning about the F sharp, you know, this form, then I thought, well, what notes can I add? And so I started adding that into my playing, you know, early on as a kind of a young teenager. Okay, so then we have in the middle here, and then hammer, so now there's an interesting thing that goes on here harmonically. So you can have a chord with a bar. If you add in the F sharp, ends up being F sharp minor 7 chord. So you can use the similar licks on both chords. Add the F sharp. Many things you can do there. All right, so let's go on to now the E chord. E and C sharp minor, E major pentatonic, G, F sharp, E, C sharp, B, B, G sharp, F sharp, E, C sharp, B, G sharp, F sharp, B. Up the scale, E, F sharp, G sharp, B, C sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, B, B, C sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp. Okay, so you have these kind of two kind of 5-note packets of notes. Right, so that's really convenient there. And then you also have these 5. Right, so you can use those to create different kind of low bass riffs or lead riffs. So there I'm just doing a quick slide. So So I'm sliding up to the G sharp. And then a quick slide back down. And then okay, so now at this point, let's just take this B, C sharp, E, F, and let's move it up an octave higher. So if you're playing like lead guitars. So if you have good technique and you can kind of play like an E chord, let your low string ring. So it sounds pretty full to do that. There's that kind of Hendrix with it. So I'm hammering on the C sharp. And I'm hitting both strings. So it's kind of like a more country, almost a country sound. I'm just doing a quick bend. F sharp to G sharp. That's just taking that and moving it up. Okay, and then you kind of have this kind of convenient packet of notes right here: E, F sharp, G sharp, B, C sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, and then I can take it up to here. That's kind of what I did with the A chord. E, and I'll go ahead and throw in the flatted third here, the G. So that's a really, really good sound to add to your playing. Add in the flatted third on a major chord, just sliding into the third. Or you can bend it. Okay, I'll do one more chord for this tutorial today. How about C sharp minor? So right now we're kind of getting out of the scope of the diagram that's on the lesson PDF. I think what I'll do here is I'll just briefly go through the scale here. B, G sharp, F sharp, E, C sharp, B, G sharp, F sharp, E, C sharp, B, G sharp. So if I'm doing a C sharp minor chord, I can do some of the same ideas I was talking about earlier with the B minor chord. Adding the B note, adding the F sharp, coming on the C sharp, and that technically gives you a C sharp minor chord. Now there I'm doing double. And then my pentatonic. And then the low two notes, two string. Okay, so that should give you a lot to think about with these open chords, and then you can use these in your songs and in your riffs and make your playing a lot more interesting. Okay, thanks for watching. Have a good day.